My name is Ellis Wren. I'm 34, and I used to lead missions into gunfire before most people finish breakfast. I've been erased before. By enemies, by command, by protocol. But this time, it was family. It wasn't a direct hit. Not at first, just a wedding invitation addressed to someone else. My brother Noah's name printed clean. Everyone was listed, even my third-grade teacher. But not me, not the eldest. Not the soldier who once carried half this bloodline on her back. There were no slurs, no threats, just the elegance of deliberate omission, Maddie's signature touch. And like every silent war I've fought, it came wrapped in gold trim and forced civility. I called my mother. She didn't deny it. "Don't come, Ellis," she said, like she was cutting the cord to something already sinking. No apology, no hesitation, just the final shove. They thought I would stay gone, but they forgot. I don't crash parties. I reclaim the narrative. Before I show you what they tried to bury and what I brought back to the surface, tell me, have you ever been erased so quietly, so skillfully you almost believed you were never there at all? If you have, this is your story too. Like, share, subscribe. Because silence protects power. But truth? Truth breaks the room. It was Noah's name on the envelope that caught my eye first. Clean lettering, crisp corners. But when I turned it over, something stung. The list tucked inside had everyone. Every cousin, every forgotten uncle, even my third-grade teacher, but not me. I scanned it again. No Ellis Wren. No +1. No mention. It didn't surprise me. Disappointment from this family had long since burned itself numb. Still, this one cut with an elegance only Maddie could conjure. Meticulously printed, gold-trimmed, and as deliberate as a slap to the face. I walked outside and stood on the porch of the old cabin I now called home. Bare, quiet, somewhere between peace and exile. The woods beyond were still brown with the clinging grip of late autumn. November 9th, 2023. The cold bit and sharp, but familiar. I didn't need reminders of what isolation felt like. Inside again, I stared at the invitation lying on my wooden table like a carefully dressed insult. I took a photo of the erased name. The paper's grain bore faint marks of correction fluid, subtle but visible to someone trained to spot inconsistencies. Grayson never left traces. Maddie rarely dared. That left only one conclusion. I dialed my mother. The line rang 5 times. Then a click. "What?" she answered, tight and clipped. "I got the invitation, or at least the shell of it." Silence. "Don't come, Ellis. You didn't even try to pretend this wasn't intentional." "I didn't need to," she said. "You think after what you did?" "I led a Black Ops mission that got shut down without cause. That's what I did." She sighed, the kind of sigh people reserve for the tired weight of disappointment. "Don't make this harder than it already is. You'll make it about you. Like always." I bit back every insult that stormed to the front of my tongue. Instead, I hung up. The room echoed with nothing but my own pulse in my ears. I stared at the laptop on the table. Closed, silent. But I knew what lived inside it. The 2021 campaign files. The encrypted code from the failed extraction in Ankara. And one video. Never submitted, never reviewed. Until now. But not yet. Instead, I stepped out again and walked down the narrow trail behind the cabin, lined with the crunch of dying leaves under my boots. Just over the ridge near the frozen creek, I saw a figure. Familiar. Shorter than I remembered, but solid, hair grayer. "Noah?" I said. He turned, blinking like I'd walked out of a ghost story. "Jesus, Ellis." I hadn't heard my name said with that much shock since the tribunal. He took a step forward, searching my face. "What the hell are you doing here?" "Living. Quietly. Trying to remember who I was before everything went to hell." His face folded into a look of real emotion. Complicated. Unreadable. "I heard rumors you were still in Germany." I left. 2 years ago. Why? I let the silence settle between us like a fog. Because they left me. Command hung us out to dry, and Grayson told the Pentagon I'd authorized it alone. Noah exhaled sharply. That bastard. I shrugged. They gave him a medal. Gave me a dishonorable. Maddie stopped speaking to me. You stopped writing. I didn't know what to say, he said. You disappeared. That's what erasure looks like, Noah. It's not loud. It's sterile. He looked at me for a long moment. You came back for the wedding? No, I said. I came back for the truth. When I returned to the cabin that night, I didn't turn the lights on. Just sat at the table, bathed in dim monitor glow, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The clip was still there. I hadn't watched it in over a year, but I knew what it showed. Grainy footage. Grayson's voice giving the order. The timestamp that would break his narrative in two. The one piece no tribunal ever saw. I stared at it, my finger hovering above the spacebar. Not yet. Instead, I opened a new document. I began to draft a note. Something brief, crisp, final. I won't crash the wedding. I'll take back the whole damn room. They built this entire day without me. But they forgot I build things too. Systems, strategies, consequences. The bell above the door chimed with the same reluctant clink it had made a decade ago. Kingston's old cafe, Deacon's Place, still smelled of burnt espresso and nostalgia, even though half the menu had faded behind greasy glass and the other half was scratched out with Sharpie. I sat in the back corner, laptop open, sipping weak coffee from a chipped mug that hadn't aged well either. Noah hadn't spoken since we walked in. He stood by the window, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the sidewalk like someone expecting surveillance. Maybe he was. We used to meet here before ops, I said, mostly to fill the silence. You always took that corner, said it gave you a good line of sight. Noah didn't laugh. He didn't even look at me. It also had a back exit. I nodded. You think they'll come after me? I think they already have, he said. You just haven't seen the full weight yet. I turned the screen toward him. My inbox showed a new message. Subject: You'll need this. From Alex Rains. Still used his old secure signature. The file attachments pulsed with promise. You reached out to Rains? I tapped the file. He owed me. 3 months ago, I helped him shut down a leak in Sector 7. This is repayment. Noah sat across from me, but he was tense, every muscle taut. Ellis, I need you to think. Really think. Grayson isn't just a disgraced father or a bitter general. He still has connections, friends in command, enough to bury this before you hit upload. I clicked open the document. That's why I'm not uploading. Not yet. His eyes narrowed. So what's the play? I leaned forward, voice low. Control the narrative. Show them what they buried. Not on my terms. On theirs. He shook his head. You really think one video's enough? I slid the USB stick across the table. Watch it. Then decide. His fingers hesitated before grasping it. We didn't speak as he walked out. I didn't follow. Instead, I headed to the range. The abandoned building sat 3 blocks north behind a crumbling mechanics shop. We used to run drills here. Simulated civilian extractions, fire team coordination. I could still hear the barked commands echo in the empty hall. I set up my laptop on the dusty table near lane 3. The concrete walls were damp, the air thin. I inserted the drive. The file loaded slowly. For a second, it stuttered, like even the system knew what it was about to show. Then, Grayson's face, center frame, his uniform crisp, his voice calm. In the background, 2 bodies, motionless, partially obscured by wreckage. One of them moved slightly. The audio picked up muffled groans. Please. And then Grayson spoke. Leave them. We can't extract with that kind of baggage. The camera angle shifted. Someone must have recorded from their chest unit. A hand reached toward the wounded. Another soldier hesitated. Grayson stepped in, pulled the subordinate back, and turned toward the camera. "Turn it off." The feed ended. I stared at the screen, unmoving. My breath lodged somewhere in my chest, rage and sorrow coiling around each other like twin serpents. Footsteps. Noah was back. He stood in the doorway, face unreadable. "I can't put my career in your hands," he said quietly. "If you release this, if Grayson goes down, there are at least 5 men who'll drag me with him. They'll call it complicity." "You weren't even there." "Doesn't matter," he said. "I wore the patch. I trained under him." I didn't beg. I didn't ask again. He dropped the USB on the table. "I never saw anything, but I'm not stopping you." And then he left. I sat alone again, the glow of the screen painting faint blue shadows across the table. I double-clicked the file. Again. Watched it in silence. Grayson's face, stoic, composed, lit the screen. The 2 bodies behind him didn't move this time. This is what they're celebrating? The ballroom was lined with gold-trimmed linen and fake smiles. I walked in with a flash drive and the truth. It wasn't hard to blend in, not when everyone assumed I couldn't possibly belong. They'd built an entire world in which I didn't exist anymore. A neat little gathering of suits and pearls, of speeches rehearsed and vows polished to perfection. The Elms estate gleamed under November's dying light, its windows reflecting a version of the family that had no room for me. I walked past the valet like I knew the place, which, in some twisted sense, I did. They'd rented this venue before. For promotions, anniversaries, that one time Maddie got accepted to Brown. Everything they thought was worth celebrating, as long as I wasn't part of it. The string quartet was mid-Mozart. Laughter drifted over champagne flutes. I kept my head down, my fingers tight around the envelope in my coat pocket. The flash drive was secured under my sleeve, taped just beneath my watch band. I moved with purpose. From the main hallway, I slipped left toward the prep room where the tech table was set up. No one stopped me. No one even looked twice. I wore black, crisp, with just enough heel to sound like staff. Confidence did the rest. The room was small, stacked with linens and extra glassware, and the AV system. I pulled the drive free, plugged it into the laptop beside the projector. The system chirped quietly. I clicked the file, labeled Vanguard Unit, Redacted Truths, and cued it to begin after the current slideshow. No alarms, no passwords. They hadn't even disabled autoplay. Then I left. Back in the ballroom, I scanned the crowd. Familiar faces. My father, in uniform despite his retirement, flanked by men with medals and stiff posture. My mother, air-kissing someone's wife. Maddie, radiant in ivory, holding a flute of champagne in one hand and the edge of her dress in the other. She looked happy. Nervous, but happy. Grayson spotted me first. He was standing near the front table, mid-conversation with Marcus, Maddie's new father-in-law. I hadn't expected him to age so poorly. His hair was grayer, but it was the eyes that gave him away. Tired, paranoid. He stepped forward fast. "You were told not to come," he growled, voice low and tightly coiled. I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled the envelope from my pocket and held it out. Maddie saw me. Her face froze. The crowd parted just enough. She hesitated, then stepped forward, curiosity outweighing protocol. She took it. Inside, the necklace. Our mother's. The one Maddie once begged to wear, only to be told it was for the eldest daughter. I had kept it anyway. Alongside it, a letter. Handwritten. No threats, no accusations. Just a story. One only we shared. Maddie looked down at it. Her lips moved slightly as she scanned the page. I turned away. The lights dimmed. The screen flickered. At first, people thought it was part of the slideshow. The title came up in stark white on black. Vanguard Unit, Redacted Truths. A few murmurs, a soft laugh. Then the first image. The grainy video opened on a smoke-filled field. Dust. Distant gunfire. A soldier, limping, bloodied, dragged another across the dirt. The timestamp blinked in the corner. June 14th, 2021, 2:47 UTC. Gasps rippled. Then the voice. Where was the command? It came cracked and raw from the footage, one of the wounded staring straight into the lens. His face was covered in blood. Behind him, bodies, at least 4. None of them moved. The room fell utterly silent. Grayson stood frozen, his jaw clenched. And then Marcus turned to him, slowly, deliberately. "Is this your legacy?" he asked, his voice like ice scraping metal. The video continued to play, but I didn't need to watch anymore. I'd seen it enough times to know exactly what came next, and I hadn't come for the guests. I'd come for their silence. The room didn't explode. It imploded, under the weight of truth they thought was buried. For a full 10 seconds after the screen went black, no one moved. No applause, no laughter. Only the slow, thick silence of disbelief coating every inch of the Elms estate ballroom. I stood off to the side, hands by my side, my breathing steady in a room that felt like it had forgotten how to exhale. Then, like a wave rolling back in, the murmurs began. "That was fake, right? Where was that footage even from? Did she say that was him?" Guests shifted in their seats. Some rose, others turned toward Grayson. The veil of pleasantries had evaporated. Now there was just suspicion, anger, and the metallic taste of shame in the air. Maddie hadn't moved. The envelope hung loosely in her hand, her gaze unfocused, locked somewhere between the past she thought she knew and the present collapsing in front of her. Grayson's posture cracked, not visibly, but in the small muscles near his temple, in the slight twitch of his jaw. His authority, so long uncontested, was no longer invisible armor. It was a target. A heavy hand landed on my shoulder. "That was real?" Marcus asked quietly. His tone was cautious, not condemning, not supportive, just wary. I didn't turn to him. Every frame. He lingered a moment, then stepped away, vanishing back into the crowd like he hadn't said anything at all. Another voice rang out. This one younger, clearer. "Ellis Wren?" I turned. A man in his late 20s, slim build, eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses, emerged from the shadows near the buffet. He wasn't dressed like the others, less polished, more functional, but he held himself like he belonged. "I'm Aiden Cole," he said, journalist. "I've been following the Vanguard cover-up since 2021. Some heads turned toward him, others toward me. "It wasn't just rumor then," he continued. "I suspected there was a secondary recording, but no one would confirm." "I didn't know there was," I replied. That's when Maddie spoke, quietly but firmly. "Then why are you only showing it to me now?" I met her eyes. They weren't angry, just confused, a little broken. "Because I hadn't seen it before either," I said. "Not until 2 days ago." Her lips parted like she wanted to ask more, but something stopped her. I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out a folded envelope, worn at the corners. Inside was the disciplinary letter, sealed, marked confidential, stamped in the handwriting I'd recognize anywhere. Colonel Jenkins, Internal Military Affairs. I held it up but didn't pass it around. "This letter is dated June 2022, I said. An internal investigation was opened after a second survivor filed a complaint. But Grayson wasn't reprimanded. He was promoted. Why? The crowd murmured louder now, some craning their necks to see what I held. "I found this buried in my father's old military archive," I continued. "It was never meant to reach daylight." Grayson stepped forward now, face flushed with something between fury and fear. He opened his mouth, closed it again. Then his phone rang. The room went still again. He stared at the screen for 2 beats too long, then turned and left the ballroom without a word. I didn't follow. No one did. But when he came back, the change was obvious. The blood had drained from his face. He walked slower, shoulders less square. He didn't meet anyone's eyes. He looked at me, then at Maddie, then at Marcus. Finally, he spoke. "I've been summoned." My father's legacy cracked not with a bang, but a silent phone call and the sudden chill of abandonment. I woke to light that didn't belong. Cold, early morning gray filtered through the blinds like a memory you don't want to keep but can't shake. My apartment was still. Too still. Not even the radiators hissed. I reached for my phone on instinct. Notifications spilled across the screen, buzzing remnants of the night before. Some were headlines, others tags, but most were simple reactions. The clip had detonated quietly, but its echo was deafening now. Exclusive. Redacted footage exposes Hero General's darkest hour. Military scrambles after damning video surfaces. Vanguard truth? Wren cover-up? Where was command? Every major outlet had it. CNN, Reuters. Even independent blogs with more passion than polish. I pulled up the video again. This time it played with captions. Someone had added subtitles beneath the dying soldier's final words. I watched his mouth form the same 3 syllables I'd seen 20 times before. My chest still tightened on the second. Where was command? A knock broke the silence. Not urgent, not hesitant. Measured. I opened the door. Noah stood there, hands buried in the pockets of a weather-worn jacket, face drawn but clear. His eyes met mine without flinching. "I came to say sorry," he said. I stepped aside to let him in. The apartment didn't resist. It had missed other voices too long. He sat on the edge of the couch like it might bite. "You were right. About everything. I couldn't do it. Not then." "I know." He blinked. "You're not mad?" "I've been alone before," I said, but I was never under the illusion that loyalty came easy. He leaned back, ran a hand through his hair. "Still, I should have." "You protected what you could. That's more than most." We let the silence breathe a bit. He turned toward the TV. "So what now? Grayson's career ends in a press conference?" I reached for the remote, turned on the news. There he was. Grayson Wren. Stiff in a blue chair. Tie too tight. Voice too calm. "I've requested personal leave," he said into the camera. "This past week has been difficult. I'm focusing on my health, and I ask the public to respect my privacy while I process these events." A pre-recorded statement. Controlled, sanitized. Noah scoffed. "They're letting him walk." "For now," I said. My phone buzzed again. A text? "Maddie, it was just a photo. The 3 of us." I couldn't have been more than 8. Maddie, barely 6. Our youngest sister, Willow, sat between us on the grass, clutching a popsicle with both hands. There was dirt on our knees, sunshine on our faces. Underneath the image, just 5 words. I remember now. "I'm sorry." I stared at it longer than I expected. Not because of the apology, but because I could smell that summer again, feel the heat of that lawn, hear the hum of a world that hadn't broken yet. I didn't reply. Later, after Noah left and the sun had fully risen, I checked my email. One new message from Aiden Cole. Subject, National Feature Opportunity Body. They want you. Primetime, national TV. You choose the anchor. They'll bend. I sat at the kitchen table, fingers hovering over the keyboard. I didn't type a single word. They erased me from a wedding. Now, millions know my name. Not because I shouted, but because I refused to disappear. The lights weren't blinding, but they were relentless. I sat beneath them, posture still, hands relaxed in my lap. The microphone pinned to my lapel felt heavier than it should have, as if it carried the weight of every moment I'd bitten my tongue, every time I'd walked away without explanation. Across from me, Aiden Cole adjusted his note cards. The studio was hushed, the audience waiting. The red light above the camera blinked once, then held steady. "We're live in 3, 2. No countdown was necessary. I was already here. Tonight, Aiden began, his voice smooth but respectful. We're joined by former Lieutenant Ellis Wren, whose recent actions at a private family event exposed a long-buried military scandal, one that's now under federal inquiry. Ellis, thank you for being here. I nodded once. Thank you for having me. The questions started gently. Background, motivation, the footage. I answered without embellishment. No anger, no theatrics, just the truth. Some of it hurt more to speak aloud than I expected. Not because of the memories, but because of what they cost. Eventually, Aiden set his cards aside. Ellis, he said carefully, what do you want from them now? I paused. There were so many ways I could have gone. Vindication, apology, restitution, but none of them fit. Nothing, I said. Justice was never about them. It was about me. He let the words hang for a moment, then nodded. The camera didn't blink. When the segment ended, they cut to commercial. The lights dimmed slightly, but the pressure didn't lift. The audience applauded. Not wildly. Not performatively. It was the kind of sound people made when they weren't sure if clapping was enough. Backstage, my phone lit up like a slot machine. Hundreds of messages. Veterans. Civilians. People I didn't know, but who knew me now. Some had lost their records. Others had lost entire reputations. Each note echoed the same truth. Someone had to speak first. And I had. Outside, Brooklyn Square was colder than I remembered. The breeze off the river sliced clean through the streets, but the cold felt honest. I pulled my coat tight and walked slowly, letting the night settle around me. Then the phone buzzed again. A video this time, from Maddie. In it, she stood in front of her parents' house. No makeup, no ring. Her voice steady. I broke it off, she said. He didn't stand for anything. And you reminded me what it means to fight for something that matters. Thanks for waking me up. No tears, no plea for forgiveness, just clarity. A sister I recognized again. I didn't reply. Not yet. Brooklyn's Veterans Memorial Wall shimmered faintly under the floodlights. Rows of names carved into stone, cold and eternal. I stopped in front of it and reached into my coat. The medal I was nominated for, years ago, before everything unraveled, had never been awarded. Politics, they said. Optics. But I'd had a replica made, just for this. I knelt, placed it at the foot of the wall. No ceremony, no witnesses, just remembrance. As I stood, a soft voice broke the quiet behind me. Excuse me. I turned. A young woman, maybe 19, nervous, eyes wide but steady. My brother served under you, she said. He told me, you saved his life. Said no one ever believed it happened. But he did. He always did. She hesitated. Thank you, General. I didn't correct her. Didn't say I wasn't one. I just smiled and kept walking. I never imagined my name would echo through headlines, through whispered conversations and quiet corners of VA hospitals and military forums. But here I was, standing in the middle of Brooklyn Square, my coat pulled tight against the November air, watching people walk by without knowing they were part of the ending to a story they hadn't even known was unfolding. After the interview, I didn't go home right away. I let the city move around me, its pulse steady, uncaring, alive. My phone had buzzed nonstop, but I'd silenced it hours ago. I didn't need to hear what the world had to say. Not yet. I needed to hear myself first. The reflection in the glass of a bakery window caught me off guard. For a moment, I didn't recognize the woman staring back. Not because she had changed beyond recognition, but because, for the first time in years, she looked like someone who had nothing left to prove. I sat on a bench facing the memorial wall. The replica medal in my coat pocket weighed more than the one I was denied. Maybe because this one wasn't from them, it was from me. My acknowledgement of everything I endured, of everyone I lost, of what I became in spite of it. The woman who approached me looked young, barely old enough to rent a car, definitely too young to have witnessed the wars I'd crawled through. But her eyes, they carried something older. "My brother served under you," she said. "Said you saved his life. He used to say your silence was louder than most men's speeches." I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything at all. I just nodded. "Thank you, General," she whispered, then walked away before I could correct her. Not a general. Not anymore. Maybe not ever. But in that moment, it didn't matter. What mattered was that I hadn't disappeared. What mattered was that the truth didn't stay buried. What mattered was that someone, somewhere, finally said, "Thank you." Not for obedience, not for silence, but for the refusal to bow. That night, I walked until my legs ached, past churches and subway stops and the bars full of people pretending they weren't broken. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel healed, but I felt unhidden, and that was enough. Maddie hadn't called, but her text lingered in my notifications. "Thanks for waking me up." I never wanted to be her alarm clock, but sometimes that's what truth becomes. A sharp sound in the middle of someone else's dream. I turned off my phone and looked at the sky. No stars, not in this city. But I didn't need light from above anymore. I'd learned how to carry it. Justice for Ellis never came with parades or medals. It arrived in silence, when the truth finally stood taller than the lies that buried it. Her fight was not one of revenge, but of reclamation. A quiet, unrelenting reminder that dignity denied is still dignity worth reclaiming. When injustice is met with unwavering courage, the final verdict can echo through a lifetime. Some legacies are built on fear, others rise from defiance. And no wall of silence can outlast the voice that refuses to vanish. They erased me from a wedding, like a line they were proud to cut. But I didn't shout. I didn't beg. I showed up with the truth, and let it speak for itself. What happened after wasn't about revenge. It was about reclamation, about holding up a mirror and forcing people to see what they tried to look away from for far too long. You don't have to wear a uniform to know what betrayal feels like. You don't need to lead missions to understand what it means to be discarded by those who should have stood beside you. Maybe you were the silent one in your own family. Maybe you've sat at a table full of people smiling around your absence. If you have, then you already know. Justice doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it arrives in a quiet room, a flickering screen, and the unshakable sound of truth finally being heard. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been made to feel invisible, disposable, or unworthy simply for telling the truth, I want you to know this. You are not alone, and your voice is still yours to use. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And thank you for believing that silence isn't always strength. Sometimes it's survival, but speaking is liberation. If this story gave you clarity, courage, or just the reminder that you matter, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who may need to hear. You're not dramatic. You're not difficult. You're not too much. You're just finally refusing to disappear. And that changes everything.